clash of national Democrats in the Lone Star State. Did the frontrunner falter under Castro attacks? And did Beto's big moment buy him more time? Here at home, Judge Lena Hidalgo and her progressive majority moved to raise Harris County taxes. Will the dig into so many pockets trigger harsh political blowback? And in the race to be Houston's mayor, the incumbent labels challenger Tony Busby a Donald Trump clone. Will the negative strike score points or appear desperate to local voters? I'm Greg Groogan, and welcome to What's Your Point, where our panelists call it like they see it. Let's greet them. Starting us off, legendary reporter turned investigative media consultant Wayne Dolcefino. Next up, legal analyst and Houston attorney Carmen Roe. In the 3 spot, Bob Price, associate editor of Breitbart Texas. Batting cleanup, longtime Fox 26 legal and political analyst Chris Tritico. Next up, Jacquie Baly, professor of political science at the University of Houston downtown. And closing us out on that hot corner, writer, educator, and radio host, Antonio Diaz. Okay, let's get to it. This week, Houston, Texas played host to a much anticipated Democratic national debate, with 9 of the 10 participants all maneuvering to gain missile lock on gaffe challenge frontrunner Joe Biden. The only real suspense: which candidate would take the risk of pulling the trigger? Roughly 36 minutes into the battle, we got our answer.
They do not have to buy in.
You just said that. You just said that 2 minutes ago. You just said 2 minutes ago that they would have to buy in. You said they would have to buy in.
Have to buy in. If she qualifies for Medicaid,
are you forgetting what you said 2 minutes ago?
Be in for it.
Are you forgetting already what you said just 2 minutes ago?
While Julian Castro contends the exchange was purely about a difference in health care policy and not personal, most viewed the dig as a calculated hack at the former vice president's mental acuity and fitness to lead. While some in the field took issue with Castro's aggression, my cynical guess is that most were quietly cheering. Bottom line, was Castro's punch a legitimate part of the process, or, as some contend, mean-spirited ageism that deep-sixed his struggling campaign? Tony! What did Castro do? Did he do the right thing?
He did the right thing, and I was overtly cheering. And I think, you know what, the folks that have a beef with Julian Castro raising his voice to Joe Biden, those folks are not ready for the mano a mano that's coming with Donald Trump, who the day after was saying even worse things about Biden. So that's that part of it. I will say this, though. I think the way Julian Castro has been treated before this and after this reveals a lot of the media bias that was present even during 6 weeks ago during the El Paso slaughter, when there weren't enough Latinos to talk about the Latino slaughter on media. Now you have media bias shaping these transcripts, because with my own eyes, I saw that Julian was right. Biden did say what Julian said he said. Biden then denied it. But then there were transcripts that were actually contradicting the reality I saw. So I think this is just another example of the media bias that doesn't really treat Latino candidates across the board seriously. I think media need to have a deep discussion with Latinos about Latinos and treat us right.
As is our practice, we like to go to Wayne Dolcefino after you speak.
Now, there was a really small nugget of truth in Tony's rambling. But I'd like to begin with my Joe Biden impression, but let me make sure I have my teeth in first. Okay? Got it. So listen, Julian Castro is dead in the Democratic Party.
You weren't going to vote for him anyway.
No, it's not about whether I'd vote for him, Tony. But the Democrats are the ones, the power machine are the ones that are mad at Julian Castro. I actually think, Tony, I actually agree with you that it was fine for him to do it stylistically, because I'm not really a guy that likes to pick fights, but stylistically, he should have stopped when he got the first crowd reaction. He had done what he needed to do. It's sort of that keeping on stuff that I think really hurt him.
Chris Tritico, your take.
Well, I agree that it was okay to engage. Where I thought that this thing went off the rails was later, when they were talking about the immigration policy and they were attacking Biden for not standing up to Obama, and for Julian Castro to say, "Where were you?" when Biden should have come back and said, "Wait a minute, you were there. Where were you? Where was your voice?" That's where Biden dropped the ball, I thought, in that debate.
Okay, we've got a little bit more of this exchange. The "did you forget" line was not isolated. Castro went after Biden later in the debate for riding Obama's coattails when it suits him while distancing himself from the former president's policy shortcomings.
And then every time somebody questions part of the administration that we were both part of, he says, well, that was the president. I mean, he wants to take credit for Obama's work, but not have to answer to any questions.
Okay, guys, what do you think of that? I'm going to go Bob Price first.
Well, first on the memory issue, I understand why he wanted to pull the trigger on that. There's been a lot of question about that issue with the vice president, but he was wrong on the facts. Biden didn't say what he accused him of. Biden said if you can afford it, you should pay in. If you can't afford it, you don't have to pay in. And that's completely different than what Castro attacked him on. On the other issue, you know, I think it's really interesting that the vice president hasn't asked his former boss for an endorsement. The only reason you would not ask your former boss for an endorsement is because you don't want to make him tell you no, and he knows the answer would be no.
Okay, Carmen, you go in courtrooms and try to make arguments, and you have to decide whether they fall flat or whether they're going to hit the target. What did you think of Castro's performance?
You know, it's funny you asked me that, because my take was, you know, when you beat up on witnesses in a courtroom, you have to get the jury's permission to do it. So I agree exactly with what Wayne said. I think he went too far, and I don't think this crowd gave him permission to keep beating up on Joe Biden. And so I think it worked against him, unfortunately.
Okay, good professor. What was your take on this exchange? And Castro took a chance.
Many people are questioning Biden's mental facility, mental acuity, and he just brought it to the forefront. But insiders within the party do not want that to be brought up on and on and on, because they want him to be the main person that's going to take on Donald Trump. They're hoping, as in Democrats are hoping, the 254 counties that switched from Obama, that switched to Donald Trump, will come back if Joe Biden is actually their nominee. So bringing up the fact that he is slow, the fact that he is not what he used to be, is not what people, insiders in the Democrat Party, want to hear. Castro said everything that we've been saying in our living rooms, but that party does not want that brought to the forefront.
That's his problem.
Okay, Tony, chance for rebuttal.
Well, no, it is kind of deep, because I do worry that the Democratic Party will not give Julian Castro a chance. I do worry that Biden thinks he's entitled to this position, isn't going to fight for it. But I will point something out. You're going to have an exciting campaign coming up for this Democrat nominee, because we're not talking about this Ivy League Chicanos profound dives into policy, which, if you want to find, they're there. We're talking about him standing up, speaking his voice. That's the candidate I like. That's the candidate I believe will be able to fight for our civil rights and for America to stay America once he faces Donald Trump.
Hey, there was another winner, I thought. The other moderate on that stage, Amy Klobuchar, who's standing over on the side saying, hey, look, if Joe Biden fumbles, I'm here, I'm strong. Go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, look, I don't think Democrats are going to win, personally, against Donald Trump. But I will tell you one thing. Klobuchar, Booker, even Sanders, they're authentic. I mean, they really are. I mean, I think you have to admit that. I think Tulsi Gabbard, who should have been on that stage, right, is authentic. I think a lot of people wanted to hear more from Tulsi Gabbard. And the thing I don't like, and I think Tony's right about this nugget, the media, the parties, they all control who they really want the nominee to be. And if people don't realize that, they're foolish, which is why you should educate yourself on other candidates. They want you to pick certain people. They're feeding you a certain narrative.
To go off on his point, in the first debate, when Biden was attacked by Kamala, she dropped in the ratings. Now that Castro attacked Biden, he's dropping. So that's exactly correct. There's a narrative that's already being played out. You guys are going through all of these gymnastics and all of these games. At the end of the day, he's still going to be your nominee.
Quickly, Bob.
Well, the real race for Castro was for vice president, and he really damaged himself on that issue today.
Okay, you agree with that, Chris?
I do agree with that. I think Beto helped himself in that vice presidential race, because Texas is kind of where I think that vice presidential race is
Come and
headed.
get it, baby. Come and get
Don't
it.
race for number two, race for number one.
Up next, the other Texan on the Democratic stage and his big moment. Will Beto's gun grab energize an otherwise sputtering campaign? That's the question on our table after the break. Welcome back. There was another Texan fighting for political viability on the debate stage at TSU. And former Congressman Beto O'Rourke delivered what we've come to know as a moment.
And in Odessa, I met the mother of a 15-year-old girl who was shot by an AR-15. And that mother watched her bleed to death over the course of an hour because so many other people were shot by that AR-15 in Odessa and Midland. There weren't enough ambulances to get to them in time. Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
Of course, O'Rourke lives in El Paso, where August 3rd, 22 people died in a mass shooting perpetrated by a gunman targeting Hispanics. Thursday, he received plenty of applause, but also plenty of pushback, like this message from Houston Area State Rep Briscoe Cain, who tweeted, quote, "My AR-15 is ready for you, Robert Francis," end quote. O'Rourke called that a death threat, and Twitter pulled it down.
The real concern should be with candidates for president discussing the violation of constitutional rights. Had he said, "I'm going to silence you and take away your free speech," we'd all be upset. He's doing the same thing there.
Okay, panel, what do we make of this? Bob Price.
Well, first off, those people at the Walmart in El Paso were not killed by an AR-15. They were killed by a madman on a mission to take out racial hatred against some people that he had been pushed to the point of breaking and took action on it. He could have done the same thing with a car in the parking lot or any other way of taking that out. It's not the weapon, it's the person. But, you know, this Robert Francis O'Rourke has now become the T-shirt salesman in chief for the Democratic Party and is truly revealed the intent of that party against the Constitution, against the Second Amendment of the United States. On this stage, back when he was running his failed senatorial candidacy, we said that he was going to take guns away from people. And other people on this panel said that is not what he wants to do. Now we know exactly what he wants to do and what the Democratic Party wants to do.
Okay. Tony, does Beto get any traction on this?
Yes, he does, because guess what? The voters will decide. At the end of the day, people saying that his campaign is over. Well, he's daring to say what hasn't been done. And you're right, Congress won't do anything about this right now. So he's putting it to the American public and saying, if you believe this is what should be done, vote for him. If it works, we will see change. If not, it's not going to work. I think he's got to say it out loud and dare to bring it up. And guess what? We've got checks and balances. If this is unconstitutional, especially this Republican Supreme Court will say you can't do that. So let's democracy, be democracy, get new ideas, and Americans vote, get registered to vote, and pick who you want us to shape the country.
Jackie, will this energize Republicans, this kind of talk?
Well, we've already been energized, especially every time we see that man. But let me tell you this. Not only did people on this stage say that he wasn't going to take our guns away, he said he wasn't going to take our guns away. And why am I the only one that's bothered that a man who can't pass a background check because of his own criminal past wants to take away guns from law-abiding citizens who can pass a background check because they don't have a felony or other serious crimes on their record? So the fact that he now says, I want to take your guns, Bob is right. He is now revealing exactly what he is. Several months ago, he said he was not going to do that.
Okay. Under the category authenticity, you know, Beto was up there. He was emotional. He had reason to be. He laid out a policy. Carmen, what was your take? Do you think ultimately it will be a good thing for him?
No, I mean, I just don't. I don't think you can lead Texas by saying you're taking our guns away. This is just not the state to have that message. And I think what Jackie said is true. I mean, I think he's been getting really close, but saying he won't, and I just want to talk about it, and I want to do background checks. I think we finally know exactly what we've all known all along, which is he wants to take the guns away. That's clear, and now everybody knows it, and I don't think that works for him. Even though a lot of people disagree with that, I just don't see that ever being something that Texas signs off on.
Okay, Wayne, we've been watching Beto O'Rourke for what, 2.5 years now? Yeah. What's your take?
Well, whatever him. Look, and I'm more than happy to invite the FBI to my house, but I got a quick thing to tell Beto. You are not coming to take people's guns away. That would be a recipe for a disaster, and everyone knows what I'm talking about. Listen, in Denver, there's a guy that shot a cop a couple of days ago. Turned out he was released from a mental hospital and then got the right to buy guns. If we don't sort of stop this nonsense and realize that it's the crazies that we got to deal with, that's the solution, the crazy people, we're wasting a lot of time on political rhetoric.
Okay, the clear-eyed analysis of Chris Tritico now. You've heard everybody else.
And he agrees with me.
Every now and then. The issue and the reason Beto O'Rourke is so upset is he's tired of watching people get gunned down by crazies, and he's tired of watching people who aren't qualified or shouldn't be buying guns get guns. And he's tired of watching the Senate sit on bills for 200 days and not do anything. And so when he goes to El Paso and watches the people in his city get gunned down by someone with an AR-15, he says something. And so he may not mean that he's going to go in and try to pass legislation to take your guns away, but he said something on a stage to get his campaign revitalized. But this is a time in our country when somebody needs to act. And our country, our leaders are failing us. And that's what Beto O'Rourke is saying.
That's right.
And that needs to be done.
Okay, look, we are seeing movement. 2 years ago, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick would not have said, hey, look, I think it's time to do something about stranger to stranger private transactions. Bob, you weren't here, and I really wanted to hear what you thought about that last week, but go ahead and take some time.
Well, the issue of complete background checks is fine. There is a need for that. But the problem is, this guy didn't buy his gun legally. He failed a background, not this guy, but the guy at the Odessa shooting. He failed a background check, and then he went and purchased a gun illegally. And you've got to stop people from manufacturing guns illegally and from selling guns illegally. There are things that need to be done, but when we need to find things that will work. When you've got 16 states that won't report mental health commitments to the NICS system, when you've got states that won't report felony convictions to the NICS system, that's where we need to fix it. We need to do something that will have an effect, not something that just feels good, which is what the Democrats want to do.
Okay, we're going to leave it right there. When we come back, another big name gets the boot from the president. Inner Circle, the firing of National Security Advisor John Bolton is up for discussion, so stick around. Welcome back. In the nation's capital this week, a major change at the White House where National Security Advisor John Bolton was shown the door. The hawkish Bolton, who the president once joked never met a war he didn't like, fiercely objected to Mr. Trump's plan to host the Taliban at Camp David. He also clashed with the president over North Korea and Venezuela. Democratic Senator Chris Murphy expressed some measure of relief, saying Bolton's departure means, quote, fewer people will be whispering war chants in the president's ear, end quote. Others find the revolving door of senior national security officials in the Trump administration troubling. Okay, panel, what do we make of this move, Wayne Dolcefino?
You know what's funny about life in politics is that the Democrats complained for months about John Bolton, what a horror he was. Then Trump actually gets rid of him, in part because of that, right? That he thought he was too hawkish. And then everyone's complaining about that. But look, the fact is Donald Trump is a businessman. He doesn't mind dropping bombs on people, but he wants peace. He wants everyone to prosper. He'd love to have hotels in North Korea. He'd love to let Iran make money. People don't get that about him. They're just dumb because that's all he really wants. He's not a war guy. He's a peace guy. He's a prosper guy. That's why I like him.
Okay, Chris, this may be one of those occasions where you actually disagree with Wayne.
Well, I never thought that I would find myself agreeing with John Bolton on anything. But, you know, for John Bolton to be the voice of reason in this administration, saying you can't have the Taliban to Camp David.
That's a bad idea.
and your policy on Venezuela is wrong. And for him to be the one having reason in this administration, I think is odd. But the overall problem here is this revolving door in the national security apparatus here. Donald Trump needs to get somebody that he's willing to listen to and that can be a stability in national security and stop moving people in and out. That is really troubling, I think, for the administration.
Okay, got to leave it there. Just ahead, she's in the thick of the fight to be Houston's next mayor, offering voters a solid resume of leadership and plenty of ideas. Candidate Sue Lovell returns to our hot seat, looking to attract your support, so stick with us.
We're also calling for the end of no-knock raids as far as the police department is concerned. I do get to pick a police chief, and I'm going to pick a police chief that has no interest in continuing the drug war.
Welcome back. That was Houston mayoral candidate Derek Broze, one of 12 contenders on this year's ballot, a ballot which will also list the name of former city council member Sue Lovell, who is earning very solid reviews at forums after voters have watched her and listened to her across the community. Sue Lovell, welcome back to the hot seat.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you've been in the thick of this race for a few months now.
I have.
What separates you from the mayor and the other major contenders?
6 years of service on city council, vice mayor pro tem, served on the transportation policy, Houston Galveston Area Council, where federal dollars come through, big decisions, as we're seeing with this I-45 issue. Chaired 3 major committees, and I have more experience than anybody, including the incumbent mayor.
Okay, look, you just mentioned it, but you've been talking a lot about rethinking the major I-45 expansion. Why? We're hearing about lost jobs, lost homes. Tell us what your concerns are.
I don't think the philosophy of the city ought to be to encourage people to go live in the suburbs and then drive in every day to come to work. I think those dollars should be used inside the city to encourage people to stay in the city and work. And the expansion of that will tear up neighborhoods, the air quality, it will affect, there's something like 20 schools along that route that will be affected by bad air quality. I just spoke with the Building Owners Management Association. What it will do to downtown leasing for the 10 years it's going to take to do these segments will be very destructive. People won't want to come lease because of the construction, and once they move away, it's very hard to get them back. At a time, we should be encouraging more and more people to come to Houston and share the opportunities that are here. We're doing everything we can to drive them away and tear up neighborhoods.
Sue, a major issue in this race is the refusal of Mayor Turner to accept voter-approved pay parity for firefighters. Now, as this court fight continues, how would you settle this destructive stalemate?
So when I become mayor, we'll just drop all the lawsuits. I believe that I can sit down with the firefighters and come to an agreement, collective bargaining, because in order for that to be successful, both parties have to respect each other and listen to each other, and that just hasn't been happening. The mayor has totally disrespected the firefighters and disrespected the will of the people. I believe we could sit down and resolve this very quickly.
Hey, look, this campaign has been replete with accusations of corruption and pay-to-play politics. You know the workings of City Hall intimately. Are the claims justified or are they overblown?
No, I believe they're justified. Let's just take what was in the news recently on the extension of the health care contract. Extension of a health care contract. By doctors being told to give about $90,000 to extend a $1 million contract instead of it going back out for an RFP and finding out what the better deal would be for the city and for the employees. The same is happening now. City council meetings are very quick because all these contracts that should be put out for bid again are just being extended. I call that pay to play. Okay.
Candidate Bill King claims the Turner administration is cooking the books at City Hall and that an honest accounting would show a deficit of close to $500 million. Like I said before, you know what goes on down there. You've served on council. Do you believe King's contention has merit?
I do. When you look at how this mayor is trying to solve the problems that he created, because he's not a good CEO and he does not have good leadership issues, take the garbage issue. The solution is to go out and get private sector people to come in. That costs extra funding. That's going to put you in a deficit situation. The issue that we've been having, putting more police we did overtime, $1.5 million. That puts you in a deficit situation. So his lack of leadership, he's now trying to fill that gap by overtime hours, and that leads to a deficit.
So for the record, an examination of the city books, independent, would show that we're at a deficit and not balanced, as the mayor says?
Right. We have a spending problem that we really need to sit down, and when I'm mayor, we'll sit down and go through that and get us where we're not in that deficit. It's not a revenue issue, it's really a spending issue.
Sue, the Harding Street raid was a major black eye for the Houston Police Department. Does the mayor bear some responsibility, and what would you do differently as the head of the city of Houston?
So here's the situation we are with Hardy Street. The district attorney has said that the raid was illegal. The police had no legal rights to be there at that home and for those two innocent people to be murdered. The police chief is saying, no, we have probable cause. I think the mayor's responsibility right now is to tell the citizens who does he agree with. Two very different takes on the situation, and I think he needs to tell the people, does he agree with the district attorney? It was wrong. She's apologized to the families. It was a horrible incident. Or is he standing with the police chief saying, no, they had probable cause to be there?
Are you calling on the mayor to apologize to the families?
I think the mayor should apologize to the families. I believe that Kim Ogg has gotten come to the right conclusion, and I think it was wrong what happened. And when something happens that's wrong, you apologize.
Sue Lovell, thanks for being in the hot seat. We'll see you again.
Sure.
Okay, when we come back, more on the mayoral race as Sylvester Turner plays hardball over the airwaves against a single challenger. The bid to equate Tony Busby with Donald Trump when we return. Welcome back. The Houston mayoral race is heating up with incumbent Sylvester Turner punching back over the airwaves against a single challenger equating Tony Busby with none other than Donald J. Trump. Busby, who's been hammering Turner with negative spots for several months, labeled the mayor's attack ad desperate.
I've always tried to support people who I thought would be game changers, people that I thought that when they got into government they would make a difference, make the city or the country or the state better. I supported Mayor Turner. He's of all the candidates I've supported, he's probably the biggest disappointment that I've had.
Rice political analyst Mark Jones says the Turner ad is, quote, unfair because Busby has made substantial donations to both Republicans and Democrats. Grateful recipients that include the mayor, a fact you will not find in that ad. Jacquie Baly, professor, what do you think of this issue?
Well, the fact that the mayor has decided to attack Tony and the way that he attacks him in that ad, all it says to voters and viewers is that he's threatened by Tony. A lot of us were really not taking this on because Tony has been very transparent. He has held an event for the mayor at his home. He has held an event for several Democratic judges at his home. He gives money across the aisle to both Republicans and Democrats. He's a businessman. That's what they do. So the fact that he's looking at some of his donations, taking it apart and trying to paint a picture of what he's not, says to voters and viewers that the mayor is threatened by him. And that's what really comes across from this ad. I think it's going to backfire on the fact that the mayor did this.
Okay, Carmen Roe, make your point.
You know, I think I agree with everything Jacquie just said. I think it makes Sylvester look desperate, but I also think the timing of it coming behind this racial suggestion that Tony Busby's using race or that somehow he is a racist or whatever. I think that Trump is in some people's minds equated to that. So there's some intimation that that reinforces the same message from the Turner camp. But I think that Tony is handling himself very well, as you would expect from a Marine. I wouldn't think this is going to be anything more than entertainment.
Chris, you've been watching Houston politics for a while. Does this work for the mayor?
Well, first, Tony Busby's been attacking the mayor for months in ads, months. And
We're
the
not
mayor,
saying whether counterattack's justified or not.
Well,
It's just, will this work?
well, the mayor hadn't said anything, and so he finally said, "I've got to do something." And so this is for Jacquie and Carmen to feign this. Oh my God! I'm sorry. The mayor had to do something, so he came out with an ad.
Well,
I don't know if it's
usually
going to
when you're the
work or not. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but the mayor knows that Houston votes Democrat, and so to try to tie him to Donald Trump, who's not going to be popular among Houston voters, is probably a decent move to move forward.
Usually when you're the incumbent, you don't come out
This is the
like
new
that.
tactic by the Democrats, is to donor shame people that are supporting the president in any way, shape, or form. Yep. You know, we have political free speech in this country. You're allowed to support whoever you want to support, and to go after people on that issue, I think is pretty ridiculous, especially somebody like Tony Busby, who clearly supports every Democratic candidate he can get a hold of.
Okay, we got to leave it there. Still ahead, Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo's push to raise taxes without voter approval. Is the additional levy on local homeowners justified? Plus, California's controversial move to let college athletes cash in on their fame. Could it trigger a meltdown of the powerful NCAA? Both topics front and center after the break. Welcome back. Democratic Harris County commissioners, led by Judge Lina Hidalgo, are pushing through an 8% increase in property taxes, the first rate increase in 2 decades. Newly passed state legislation which reduces the so-called rollback rate from 8 to 3.5% does not take effect until next year. That means voters this year will have no veto power on this looming increase in their tax burden. It's worthy of mention that both the City of Houston and Houston ISD are lowering their rates. Hidalgo and Democratic Commissioners Adrian Garcia and Rodney Ellis say the county needs the additional revenue to finance a range of current and future needs, including a rainy day fund. Panel, is this move justified or a money grab by liberals looking to expand social services? Wayne, I pose that to you.
So, look, I say this as someone who has voted for Republicans and Democrats, and I think there are yahoos and crooks on both sides, okay? I do. This is exactly what you get when you put Democrats in office. They want more money. And that's why most hardworking people don't like it. You know what? No one even covers the county anymore. This Lina Hidalgo lady, nobody even knew who the hell she was. And I think it's absurd. Appraisals go up, taxes go up. It is insane. And people need to start paying attention what those people are doing over there.
Well, Tony, they know her now. You backing Lina on this?
Well, I think we just heard what the Republicans will run when the next election comes up. So I would advise her and her whole team to proceed as if this is a voter referendum. There's still 3 public meetings. And even right now, of course, Republicans would like to paint the Democrats as the party of tax hikes. But guess what? We are going to have floods coming up. We've been capped on how much we can get for that. I don't want to get flooded. You have Republicans saying this could cost your average homeowner over $100. I've heard the county say that it's going to cost $37 per year for folks that have over $250,000 worth of real estate. So it sounds fair. I think the Democrats have to tell the public exactly how much it will cost, exactly where the money will go, because otherwise it sounds like a slush fund. If it's going to stop flooding, I don't want to flood. And there's scarce resources. What I like, too, is at the end of the day, we have a say in this. Previous administrations, we didn't hear from all the black community, all the Latino community, all the poor Anglo folks. Now we are. We asked for this. It's time to make tough decisions. We can do it together without being vilified. What I like, too, is we have grumpy folks on the right wing who want to scare us. We can look up stuff on Google now. We can make right decisions on our own.
Bob Price, does this give the Texas GOP
too much thinking for you, Wayne?
A perfect example to run an ad saying, like, look, you elect, put Democrats in power, they raise your taxes?
Well, you see this all over the country. It's not a surprise to anybody that this is happening. And when you look at the chaos it's created, and look at the majority of the big cities in this country that are run by Democrats and have been for decades, and you look at the turmoil that's going on in those cities, the high crime rates, the poverty rates, all of these things that they should be fixing and they're not. You know, but the reason they're raising taxes is because she wants to spend more money. She wants to give transportation to accused criminals to drive them to court. She wants to put sidewalks on every county road out in the country, no matter the fact that nobody's walked on any of those roads
That's
for
not
decades.
What the funds would be used for.
That is what she said she wants to do.
That's not what the funds would be used for.
You just said you didn't know what the
hold
funds
on,
would be
hold
used
on,
for.
hold
Additionally,
on. Chris, jump in here because I'm coming back to you on our next topic, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, I think it was a mistake just a few months into office when the Democrats took over to just jump in with a tax hike, and it gave Wayne and the conservatives everything they needed, all the ammunition they needed. They should have rolled this out a little slower, in my view. But I think the flooding issue that the county has been going through for years and years and years is probably the need to raise some funds. But they should have done it in a way that the public would have gotten behind it and not give the Republicans the ammunition they need coming into the next election.
Okay,
You know what? If anyone ever looked, flood control in this county, we have spent hundreds of billions of dollars.
Under Republicans.
No.
Under Republicans. You're making up
Tony,
stuff now.
Whatever.
You're like Biden making up stuff.
Republicans, Democrats, I don't care about that, Tony, and I think you should realize that. We have spent literally hundreds of billions of dollars making engineers and contractors rich, and we still flood worse
She
than
just
we ever
started,
did.
though. So she'll fix that then.
We'll talk about
started.
this again in the future, but now we're going to a new topic. A head-on collision in the works after lawmakers in California unanimously approved a measure allowing college athletes to earn money through endorsements. The NCAA is pushing back, claiming the law would erase the distinction between amateur and professional athletes, and if enacted, could force expulsion of California colleges from the association. Leaders in the Golden State aren't backing down, citing the fundamental unfairness of universities and the NCAA reaping billions off the talent of student athletes. It is a showdown with enormous potential consequences. Thank goodness we have lawyers here. I'm going to go to Carmen first, and then Carmen, what do you think about this?
I mean, this whole thing is incredibly interesting. It's about control, obviously. There's some people who say this may not be constitutional. There's people that are saying the sky is falling and this is going to be the end of so many things dealing with sports. But the truth is that a lot of these students don't have control over their social media, the messages, the t-shirts they wear, etc. And there are universities who take all that control. And so if this law is signed by the governor of California and it goes into law, it's going to be a situation that's going to change everything. Because as we talked about, it's going to be a state where you can go as an athlete and make money and have control of your own image. And you can't do that in any other state. Then California is going to get all the best players.
Chris.
So at first, it's completely constitutional because we have to understand the NCAA was not created by legislation. It's an association that the universities created on their own. They have no governing law that creates them. And so if California says, we don't care about you, NCAA, and we'll go on our own, the NCAA can expel them if they want. California can create their own little NCAA if they want to and go on their own. If California gets Texas and Florida to join them, they will be the powerhouse. The NCAA will be a nullity. This is the beginning of the end of the NCAA and their control over college sports. Right. It's a huge problem for the NCAA, and they need to seriously think about how they're going to continue governing sports.
Jacquie Baly, a proud mom and also a champion of free enterprise. What's your take?
Right. Proud mom of a very good athlete.
Right.
And let me tell you, a lot of people underestimate the time and the discipline that these young men and women have to go through to actually be a college athlete, a very good college athlete. And the university will take their image and their likeness, as has been done to me with my son. And sometimes we aren't even aware until we'll see it on their website or we'll see it, he's on a banner at the university. And they will use a lot of these athletes to make billions upon billions of dollars. So when you're looking at the athlete himself and you're looking at their family, of course you say there should be some type of compensation for them. The way this is written, you're going to have a detriment effect for other people who are trying to compete, because there will be better athletes like my son and everyone else will go towards those states that they can get a benefit from it.
Sounds like the NCAA needs to get on board. Go ahead, Bob.
They are getting compensation. They're getting a free education at very expensive universities in California. And that's what they're there for, is to get an education, not to be out being entrepreneurs and spending their time chasing endorsement contracts. This is a way for agents to make money. This is a way for other people to make money. And these guys are college students. They need to be focusing on getting an education.
Okay, important point of view. Tony, and then save some time for Wayne.
I like to see the students empowered because, yes, some of them will go on to these lucrative professional careers. Many will not, either because they're hurt or don't make the cut. So it wouldn't be bad for them to make some sort of financial gain while they can for that. And this is the exploitation of students. Let's give the family and the students more power.
Wayno.
So look, this is my only take on this. I think public education, these universities, especially state universities, and the money they make on all this stuff should be used for education to lower prices. It is one of the big scandals out there. The tuition increases, the cost of going to college. We're putting all these kids in debt, and we ought to be focusing on that and getting the revenues from sports and spread it around so we can, God forbid, lower taxes. What a concept.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Still ahead, our panel answers the question, what did we miss? So stay with us. Welcome back. Try as we might, we just can't examine everything in this single hour that deserves your attention. That's why each week we carve out a little time to submit the question, what did we miss? Antonio Diaz.
Happy beginning of Hispanic Heritage Month. We've been asking for art for Hispanic Heritage Month. Now I want you to vote for Hispanic Heritage Month. We've got about 22 at least candidates running for city council. You've got about 3 weeks left to register to vote before the elections. Every 18-year-old you know Get them to register to vote, and let's make sure that we really participate in democracy this Hispanic Heritage Month.
Viva Frida.
Eso.
Okay. All right, Jacquie Baly.
Yes, and of course, in case you missed it, we are having a Houston mayoral race. This Wednesday, I will be moderating another mayoral forum at the West Grade Multi-Service Center. The question of the day is, will the mayor show up?
Chris Tritico.
Congress is back in session, but don't worry, they won't pass anything, so everything's fine.
Okay, Bob Price.
Men and women of the U.S. Border Patrol are doing a very dangerous job in protecting our borders. Friday night, one of those Border Patrol agents was shot during a traffic stop. Fortunately, he will be fine. The shooter, not so much.
Okay, Carmen Roe.
Last night I was allowed to attend the second annual firefighter gala where they raise money for firefighters. Support your public servicemen, and keep in mind that 51 days left before we do our mayoral election.
Okay, Wayne Dolcefino.
Watch the Middle East. Coordinated attacks in Saudi Arabia, 5% of their oil production down, big giant fires, and I'm telling you, someone's going to pay them back. And I don't think it was the rebels, it was Iran, and we are really dangerously close to a real war in the Middle East.
Okay, gonna leave it there. That's all the time we have. Thanks to our team. And remember, keep it right here. Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace is coming up at the top of the hour. And be sure and join us next week for the latest edition of What's Your Point? Enjoy your Sunday.